My name is Randall Eggert. This class is Grammar and Stylistics. It's about writing clearly.
Actions and nominalizations. In this video, we're going to be looking at verbs and their prototypical role in sentences. We'll also be looking at a particular type of construction that subverts that prototypical role. I know I've gone over this in other videos, but again, I want to just remind you of the basic structure of sentences, of a grammatical sentence of English. They consist of two main parts. There's the subject and the predicate. The subject is the noun phrase daughter of the sentence. The predicate is the verb phrase daughter of the sentence. And the predicate consists of the verb plus whatever completes that verb, its complement. So, for example, with a transitive verb, what completes it is a noun phrase object. All right, now that's just about the form of a sentence, not about the meaning of the sentence, not about what we fill those positions with in terms of what they refer to. But we can also think about what a prototypical grammatical sentence looks like. This is the image that we have in our heads of what sentences do and how they behave. Again, we've got a subject and a predicate, but now when we talk about the subject, we're talking about an actor, somebody doing things. And typically, prototypically, we think of people performing things, doing things. And the verb phrase is an action, right? They're performing an act. And there's typically an object, the person or thing who is acted upon. For example, the girl kicked the ball. It's a nice prototypical sentence. You've got a nice, clear character in the subject position, the girl. You've got a nice, clear action in the verb position, kick. And then you've got a nice, clear actee, the thing acted upon, the ball. The principle that Williams explicates here is that we don't have any control over the grammar. That's fixed for us. Sentences of English have to have a subject. They have to have a verb because they have to have a predicate. But what we can control is what we put into those positions. So you should put a character into that subject position. You should put an action into that verb position. And nominalizations subvert that. So a nominalization is a noun that is derived from a verb or an adjective. Helen Sword refers to these as zombie nouns. That's why I have that little picture of a zombie. The word nominalization is self-descriptive. It starts as a verb, nominalize, which means, of course, to turn into a noun. And then we add that suffix ation, and it becomes a noun, nominalization. Nominalizations tend to disrupt the prototypical pattern for sentences, wherein the action is found in the verb. So since we've taken a verb, turned it into a noun, now the action is buried inside of that noun. Sentences with nominalizations tend to contain weak verbs with little content. Like, for example, be. It's hard to imagine a verb with less content than be. Have, seem, appear, make. These are also verbs that we often use with nominalizations that don't add any real content to sentences. So again, Williams' principle is that readers will have an easier time with a sentence that have characters for subjects and actions for verbs. We've got our fixed elements, subject and verb, and our controllable elements of what we put into there, characters and subject positions, actions and verb positions. Nominalizations, on the other hand, often hide actions inside of nouns and often eliminate good characters. So let's look at some examples. Learning the rules of grammar can help make your papers clearer, more academic, and even more credible. We see we've got a nominalization right there at the beginning of the sentence. And if we think about this sentence, our subject for the sentence is this: learning the rules of grammar. And our main verb is this one here, help. Okay, and then we've got our auxiliary verb, can. What we want to do is take that zombie noun, learning, and turn it back into a verb. If we do that, then we're going to have to bring in a character, the one doing the learning. So we can transform this sentence as follows. If writers learn the rules of grammar, they can make their papers clearer, more academic, and even more credible. Now, we've got nice characters in our subject positions. And in fact, now we've got two subject positions because it's a complex sentence. We'll find that's often the case, that when we transform nominalizations back into verbs, we have to create a complex sentence. That is one with a subordinate clause and an independent clause. Next sentence, having an understanding of how verbs work can help one write so that one's prose becomes alive to readers. We've got two nominalizations here, having an understanding. And notice that our subject is having an understanding of how verbs work, and our main verb is help. Now, again, what we want to do is take our nominalization or nominalizations and turn them back into verbs. Now, this first one, having, that's a pretty empty verb. No point, or that's have is an empty verb. Having is a really empty word. So it's understand that we want to focus on. And we want to think about who understands. So this gives us now, again, a complex sentence. If writers understand how verbs work, they can write so that their prose becomes alive to readers. Our next sentence. Williams also addresses the use of these punctuation marks, paying particular attention to the punctuating of parts of sentences and types of sentences. All right, we've got a good character at the beginning of this, Williams. But we don't continue with that. So we do have some lower element areas where we can work on it. And in particular, I want to look at use and attention. There are other nominalizations in here, arguably punctuation and punctuating, but these are the two I want to focus on. So use obviously comes from the verb use, and we actually have this construction, paying particular attention. 3 words. And when we think about it, we can transform that into a nice verb that only consists of 1 word, which is focus. To pay particular attention to something means to focus. Again, we turn this into Williams also addresses how writers use these punctuation marks, focusing on the punctuating of parts of sentences and types of sentences. Much stronger sentence now. Next one, correct usage of verbs can also lend great clarity to writing. Here we've got 2 nominalizations, usage and clarity. Now, clarity is not actually a nominalization derived from a verb. This one is derived from an adjective. And to transform this, again, we're going to make a complex sentence. If writers correctly use verbs, their writing will be clear. Our next one, the full comprehension of the written word is achieved through 3 levels of reading: the literal meaning, interpretation, and criticism. All right, we do have nominalizations at the very end there, meaning, interpretation, and criticism, but I'm not so concerned about those. I don't want you to think the nominalizations never serve a purpose. Language doesn't have constructions that don't serve purpose. My point is that we overuse nominalizations, and when they get rid of good verbs, that's a problem. Here, we've got this nominalization comprehension, which is burying the word comprehend, which is a pretty good word. So let's get that back into our sentence. Readers comprehend the written word through 3 levels: the literal meaning, interpretation, and criticism. Our next example, punctuation. One of the foremost shaping factors in writing, assumes the responsibility, among many other vital functions, of distinguishing between the intent of the spoken dialects and the written English language. Now, this is a sentence that a student submitted to me in an early draft of a paper that they were writing. And I pick on this one because, first of all, I read this sentence several times and I just couldn't understand it. And what I had to do was get rid of the nominalizations and add characters so that I could figure out what the student wanted to say. So let's keep in punctuation, because that was the topic of this student's paper. And again, I don't want to say that all nominalizations are bad. This one was functioning as a character in the student's paper. But you've got these other nominalizations, 4 of them, that really weren't serving a purpose for the student. Responsibility, functions, distinguishing, intent. I went through the process, I got rid of those, and turned it into this. Punctuation, one of the foremost shaping factors in writing, functions in part to distinguish between what the spoken dialects and the written English language intend. I understand that sentence a little bit better, but I started thinking about it. What the spoken dialects and the written English language intend. Huh? What does that even mean? How can a language or a dialect intend anything? It's the speakers that intend. It doesn't make any sense. And when I brought that to the attention of the student, so the student understood it, the student was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's not what I meant to say. They confused themselves. And that's my point, is that when we write this way, our writing gets confusing, even sometimes for the writer.